What's going on, everyone? So James Harden's dream and vision of teaming up with the Los Angeles Clippers and creating this big four of Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George looks like it has officially came to an end. So according to Brian Windhorst, the Clippers have pulled out of the James Harden trade race. And I don't know where James Harden's going to go. I think he is a Sixer, and I think he's going to ride this year as a Sixer. I do. I think that they're basically stuck with him and he is stuck with them. And with the new rule changes and all that stuff, he can't sit out, right? He can, but then he's going to get all these fines. It's just going to be an absolute mess. So what happens, right? James Harden has really bet on himself and lost. Right? He bet on himself in free agency that the Rockets or somebody else would give him a contract offer, and nobody did. The Rockets said, we would rather overpay for Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet over signing James Harden. Right? You have no other team that was even remotely interested in signing James Harden. And then trades are up and open, and hey, we're unloading James Harden, and nobody's even throwing their hat in the ring, right? Outside of the Clippers. But the Clippers don't even really want to give up anything of real value. So how valuable is James Harden? And it's because James Harden has done this to himself. People are their own worst enemy. And James Harden is a great example of that. This dude has sabotaged himself and several organizations the last few years. And now it's becoming this growing trend. He has this reputation. He's a guy that doesn't seem committed. He would rather fly to Vegas in the middle of a playoff series and go gamble and party and do all that stuff and whatnot than go and win NBA championships, right? Or even just show up and win an NBA game and not go 1 of 11 or anything like that, right? Harden has done a lot, and he is an excellent player. There's no questions about that. But he is also an unproven non-winner and a guy that has a reputation of just completely disappearing in the playoffs, even when he was great James Harden. And he's not the guy he once was. He's still very good, and in the right situation, in the right environment, on the right roster, I do think he can make a real impact, but he's not that number one 27-year-old James Harden anymore, right? And teams don't want the headache for the price and the cost. And it's you're going to go and trade a bunch of stuff to go get James Harden. And one bad day, and James Harden's going to do the same thing to you that he's done to the last 3 organizations. He did it to Houston, literally sabotaged Houston so badly that they thought he was wearing a fat suit. And we're questioning, what's going on with this guy. You had Kevin McHale, who came out publicly and said, hey, look, James Harden wanted me gone, so he came into training camp overweight and out of shape, so I would get fired, and went in a whole interview about that. You have him go to the Nets, which was his destination that he wanted to go to team up and create the super team and try to win an NBA championship, and then he had problems with them and demanded out, and ends up going to where he wants again in the Philadelphia 76ers, and now is throwing a tantrum about that. And it's just dude, and the reason he's upset is so silly. It is so silly. He's upset because Daryl Morey and the Sixers didn't reach out to him immediately before training camp or before free agency. The Sixers were just fined and ridiculed and all of that mess for tampering to get you in the first place, and you wanted them to do it again? Yes, I get it. Usually when teams do it with their own players, right, it's kind of looked the other way, right? The NBA and other owners and stuff, they more care about you're trying to take their player rather than, you're wheeling and dealing behind the scenes, right? The Sixers got in trouble because Harden wasn't a Sixer, right? But still, the way Daryl Morey and the Sixers are looking at it is, why would we risk it? Like, if you don't know the situation here, that's on you. If you really don't think that we want you, we went and traded and did everything we could to acquire you and gave you the money and did all that. Like, what did you think? We were going to ship you out? Like, it makes, like, I don't understand what Harden's gripe is. So he wanted the Sixers to tamper again and run the risk of being for what? Because you wanted to talk to them 2 days early? It's the silliest excuse and nonsense I've ever heard. It's just, again, it's another excuse for his emotional whatever, his dramatic self. And he wanted to go to the Clippers, and they said, we're not interested. Thank you. You know, like, if we can get you for a bag of peanuts, we'll take you, but we're not really trying to give you anything for value. Right? Like, and again, look, James Harden, he will have a market because he's still good enough to where a team would take, like, if he'll get next year, he'll get at least $20 million, right? There'll be a team that goes, hey, man, we can get James Harden for basically half of what he probably would make. Like, let's go take a shot on him. But, like, the days of teams lining up to go sign James Harden, I don't see it. And what team would want to trade for James Harden? Again, he's a free agent, so he could leave. You know you're a bad day away from him just saying, I'm done, get me out of here. He's not committed to winning basketball. He still believes and wants to be the guy. He doesn't show up in the playoffs. And how many teams look at James Harden as the missing piece, on top of being the missing piece, being a championship contender? How many teams have all of those things and still can trade for him and have the pieces necessary to continue to contend? Right? Like, I don't see a team that's looking and going, man, James Harden, that's the guy. Right? Like, the Clippers, they just, Steve Ballmer will do whatever it takes. Like, he'll give me whoever, right? Like, if he can play basketball, like, let's do it, right? Like, they're just trying to separate themselves from the Lakers' little brother, right? And so they'll do it just to do it. But most teams aren't going to go and trade a bunch of assets to go get a James Harden that the last 3 places he's been, he has completely tried to implode. And he's probably going to continue to do that. He handled all his business publicly rather than going behind the scenes. You don't think owners and organizations and stuff, like, at the end of the day, it's still a business. You don't think that all these organizations are looking at him going like, man, he's a liability. He's just going to air out all our dirt and stuff. Like, you know, like, and then his commitment to the game of basketball. Like, Philly, I think, is screwed this year. Because I don't think James Harden is actually going to play basketball and give 100%. He hasn't done it twice. He completely quit on the Houston Rockets and he completely quit on the Brooklyn Nets. And we're supposed to expect him not to quit on the Sixers? I mean, look, for the Sixers' sake, I sure hope he does it. I sure hope he's committed. For Joel Embiid's sake, I hope that he's committed and he does it. I hope that, you know, hey, James Harden, he buys in and goes, you know what? I'm still on a contending team. You know, we were a game away and had several opportunities from being in the conference finals. And I actually think Philly would have beaten Miami. Like, I do. I picked Miami to beat Boston, but I actually think Philly would have beaten Miami. And I think James Harden's got to know, like, there's not going to be very many better destinations than this. He's just caught up in his feelings right now. He's hurt. He feels that, you know, his buddy betrayed him or whatever, right? And he just wants to, you know, be gone and go, haha, look, now what? Right? But, like, he's still in a great environment and a great situation. He's on a legit team, has a legit star, you know, MVP level guy, gets to kind of be himself and get back to being himself. I mean, again, he was, you know, led the league in assists, still 20-point-a-game guy, right? Like, well, he had his takeover games. He did single-handedly win a couple games for Philly in the playoffs. Like, he's in a great place. I just don't know if he's going to allow himself to look past his mental and his feelings and the way he feels that he's been betrayed and go, okay, let me be a professional. Let me play the game of basketball. I think he's going to look at it as like, I don't want Philly to win. I don't want Daryl Morey to get any type of credit. I don't want, and I think he's going to be selfish. And I think he's going to, he's not Kevin Durant. He's not Damian Lillard, right? He's shown that. Kevin Durant, he wanted out. Brooklyn said, hey, look, we're not just going to give you away, right? Hang with us and, you good to us, we'll good to you. We'll find a place and we'll get you to where you want to go. And he said, all right, it's all good. Even expressed, I completely get, there was communication, all that. Life was good, and went and played out. Didn't really work out too well, but ultimately he got what he wanted. He ended up going to the Phoenix Suns, right? Damian Lillard, you're seeing the situation. Same situation with Damian Lillard. He's being patient. He's a professional. If he has to play for the Blazers this year, guess what? He's going to show up to work and he's going to play his hardest. If he can go to Miami, he's going to go to Miami. And ultimately, I believe he'll end up going to Miami. And you don't have him burning bridges, right? James Harden is doing the total opposite. He's throwing his tantrum. He's doing all that stuff. But the problem is he's gotten his way every time he's done this. So it's why wouldn't I? It's a mess. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel about this whole James Harden mess? Do you think he gets traded? Do you think he stays with Philly? Love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments.